Good afternoon and welcome to Best of Health on KVMR with your host, Arly Helm. Today we'll be talking with Jeff Krieger. He is the founding CEO of Water Phobias, LLC, and director of the Strategies for Overcoming Aquatic Phobias program. He served more than 4 decades as an American Red Cross water safety instructor, a certified pool operator, an aquatic director, a camp swim director, and a lifeguard. Welcome to KVMR, Jeff.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
I'm so glad that we're going to have a chance to talk about learning to swim and overcoming fear of water and fear of learning to swim. There are so many recreational opportunities, fitness opportunities out there, and these opportunities can turn into not opportunities but deadly things if we're not prepared.
And swimming is really the only sport that can save a life, which is one important aspect of it. Two, we are living a lot longer than our forefathers and our fathers and our grandparents. And so if we're adding another 20 years onto our life, our infrastructure hasn't really changed significantly. So how do you stay in shape? You can't do the same fitness activities you did when you were 50, 60, that you might want to do in your 70s and 80s, even 90s, to stay in shape. And swimming provides you that opportunity, but if you have a fear of the water, it makes it almost impossible. A large majority of my clients right now are the baby boomers who, are looking at retirement, trying to figure out, how am I going to stay fit? Where am I going to go on vacation? Questions like that. What kind of quality time am I going to spend with my grandchildren who probably love to swim?
And I don't have grandchildren yet, but I know that when I do, we'll be spending a lot of time around the water like we were when I had my own children. And right. I want to be able to make certain that they're safe because I want to be able to make sure that I can get them out of whatever situation in the water that they might be in.
Yeah.
My parents were very afraid of water, and I guess I picked up a little of that, and I've been trying to get over that my whole adult life, and I swim competently, but I need to learn to not be afraid. All those situations in which I was really in trouble because I was afraid, not because I wasn't competent. So let's talk about that fear.
The psychological component, the emotional component is such a big part of the big picture. It has everything to do with why you're fearful. Fear is a wonderful mechanism. It's what keeps us safe. It's what prevents us from doing deadly things like, jumping off buildings, even though it looks like it would be a lot of fun. You're not going to do it because you want to live, or sticking your hand in a fire, or whatever, jumping out of a plane. So fear is part of the brain called the amygdala, which processes fear. And when the fear becomes exaggerated and the perception of your aquatic environment becomes distorted, that's when fear prevents you from responding normally to, standing in 4 feet of water where you can stand, or being able to float on your back. But the numbers are staggering of people that are unable to do that. At least 40% of adults suffer from some level of fear of drowning, for good reason. A lot of people drown. I call it an aquatic IQ. It's knowing where the separation is between taking a little risk, having some fun, or being really risky and getting yourself into a situation that you can't get yourself out of.
I was following some of your work online, and I ran into a USA Swimming study, a survey of more than 2,000 children and parents at YMCAs across the country. And the most common reason cited for not knowing how to swim was fear of drowning. So if you take a shortcut and connect those two, they are so afraid of drowning from not learning how to swim that they don't learn how to swim. It's a crazy loop, right? It
is a crazy route, and that's what the problem is. You can't learn how to swim until you've overcome the fear. My background in psychology and counseling, is really what put SOAP and water phobias together. I was a day camp director, and I couldn't understand. There was something obviously different between a child that was just having a bad day and didn't want to go in the water, and a child that was fearing for their life. I mean, really, stranglehold, like digging their nails into you. And so I went to the Red Cross, and I asked them for information, and they had nothing, and I was shocked. I said, "You have nothing?" And they said, "No," and they still have nothing, by the way. And that's going back 17 years, and so they've just, because of my efforts and a few others, to help them understand how big this problem is. They're now looking at my work and the work of some other people that do what I do across the world, and they plan to, add it to their curriculum. You can't learn to swim if you don't understand the fear, and you don't understand how to manage that fear, and how to manage the panic, what skill set do I use, what coping skills internally, and what physical skills in water do I use to get myself into a safe position. And so there are very, very, very few people that know how to teach that, or that even understand that relationship. And your question was spot on. I mean, so many people say, we'll just learn how to swim. And if it was that easy, I'd be out of a job. So,
let's talk about this. So, the strategies for overcoming aquatic phobias program. How do you approach this fear? How do you get people past that?
It's a combination of probably a half a dozen different psychological techniques, using behavior modification, sensory desensitization, positive imagery, just counseling techniques of listening to someone talk about a feeling that they don't have any idea where it's coming from. Now, most aquaphobics never experience a traumatic experience in the water. It's just they're hardwired for it. It's been passed down through their DNA, and they have absolutely no control over it. So you have to respond to those feelings. Old school was, look, just your father would push you in the water, and if you had a fear or you didn't know how to swim, you sank, and it made the situation worse. And you didn't want to go to camp, you didn't want to take swim lessons. It was pretty much over. Nobody had a program to address those children and their needs. And then, by the time they hit their middle teens, it's like, well, I'll find something else to do, another sport or something else to use my recreational time. But the process is very much spending a lot of time listening and talking to the client and explaining to them what's going on inside them. And once they get a better understanding of that there's nothing, really wrong with them, it's out of their control, they're more open to trying to let somebody help them. And then it becomes a matter of how quickly you can establish trust between your client and yourself. And I think that is my number one asset, or any good aquatic therapist or swim instructor or teacher or anybody. How quickly can you get that person to trust you?
Yeah.
I make 3 promises to my clients. One is that I will never, ever surprise them, pull a quickie on them, and just see how they do. Ever. I'll always demonstrate what I want them to do and encourage them to ask questions. The third one is that I will always, and the most important one is that no matter what situation we're in, I can handle anything that happens. You don't have to worry about anything. You can take a risk. You can take a leap of faith. I'm going to be able to keep you safe.
You're able to sort of extend that confidence and security that you have for yourself and sort of wrap your clients in that so that they feel safe to try this thing that's so terrifying.
Yeah, very much so. Because you are placing in their mindset, they are putting their lives in your hand, even though they're in a shallow end of a pool where there's virtually no chance, unless there's a medical issue, of them fearing the worst, which is, of course, drowning. What I need them to understand, and which is a biggest part of the first few sessions, is trying to make them understand that the worst thing that can happen here is that you stand up and you'll be safe. Plus, I'm standing right next to you. I mean, literally, inches away from you. So there's no matter what your head is telling you, and I, if you've never had an extreme fear of something that most people don't, it's rough on your self-esteem. It's rough on your ability to process and to communicate, and so you have to work on all those different aspects of it. Tell me exactly what you're feeling right now, because most of them can't even explain it. So you have to almost teach them the language to be able to say to me, as soon as my foot comes off the ground, I feel like I can't breathe. Then you have to go to teaching them the right way to breathe and how to be comfortable and competent with that, and then you're able to move forward. It's not a linear process. It's not a straight line.
Okay.
It very much has lots of ups and downs and curves and quantum leaps, and then a step or two back, and then a step or two forward. The bottom line is that I make sure every client leaves each session doing something positive.
In one of your papers, I read you said to somebody, all your setbacks are temporary, all your successes are permanent.
When I first started SOAP, I wanted to come up with a slogan, and one was the acronym for SOAP. Then there were two other ones I thought that kind of hit home. One is that fear can be a powerful motivator rather than a painful deterrent. And the other one was fear, no matter how large, is only temporary. And success, no matter how small, lasts forever. So that's why I want them to leave the pool every day feeling that they have made some, whether it's emotionally or physically or both, they leave the pool knowing they accomplished something, and that nobody can ever take that away from themselves, including themselves. And I encourage them to write a journal about it, because it can fade. If I only see them once a week, let's say I see them on a Saturday, by Wednesday, they're already questioning, am I going to be able to do that again? Or how did I do that? So I encourage them to keep a journal and to read it during the week, and then before they come for their next session, so it's more real to them. You learn more from a lot of your failures in this process, and I don't even like using the word failures, but for lack of a better word, I use it because the fact that they're just there trying to make progress is not a failure. It is a huge success. It's stuck, and a lot of my clients went on to use that slogan in other areas of their life. So I never looked for another word to replace fear, so it stayed there.
We think about, I don't know what some people think about the danger of swimming. Of course, I was told about the danger of it a lot when I was a child, so it was not a surprise to me to learn that there are about 4,000 drowning deaths a year, and about 1,000 of those are kids every year in the U.S. Those are the preventable ones, by and large.
Yeah, a lot of those are in home pools. Well, I moved down to Florida in 2004, and thought, I'm not going to have much business down there because every house has a pool, and the oceans and the bay are right there. And then when I got down there and talked to other aquatic professionals down there and to clients, and I was just absolutely stunned by how many people down there, and not just transplants, retirees from other states, children and families that are growing up there had a fear of water. I think they're the leading state in deaths in home pools. The ones that make their way to the beach, you do get drownings because you never know what what kind of problem you're going to run into out there, riptides, currents. But most of the drownings are without a doubt preventable. It's mind-blowing that people would buy a house and not know how to swim, or worse, have a fear of swimming to begin with, so that even learning how to swim, it adds another layer to that.
And even people that have a near drowning, depending how near it was, may have permanent brain damage. So this is not a small thing.
There are a lot of physical consequences. I can tell you there are many, many more emotional scars. From people that I just started with a new client yesterday. That he's 70 now, and as a 12-year-old, he watched his best friend drown. He was literally about 10 feet away, but his fear of water, they were fishing, and his fear of water, he couldn't go in to get him. The first 15 minutes, we talked a great deal about it, and then I just said, well, you want to come into the pool? Just stand with me. Let me hold you. Let me get you into the pool. And he got in with me, and his body just went into a complete panic. And I said, David, tell me what's going on right now. And he said, I'm flashing back to watching my friend drown. So I had to walk him, talk him off the ledge, and explain to him, unfortunately, you can never bring that back, but you've admitted that you like the water. You can't get that memory out of your head. And so anyway, there were a lot of emotional scars, as I mentioned before, being the kid that couldn't swim at camp, or being the kid that couldn't go to the beach with his other friends or her friends. Not being able to pass a test in phys ed a couple of years ago was a requirement. Now they backed off on that because so many people weren't passing, and nobody had programs to help these kids that they just stopped making that a requirement. It would take hours for me to tell you the walls I've run up against on every level that people just would rather look the other way. And I guarantee if you ask anybody that does this, has made this their career. I mean, I can teach anybody to swim, a lot of other aquatic skills, but teaching someone to get over the fear and then teaching them how to swim, you've got to be on that every day. You can't be there one day and then switch over to teaching 5-year-olds how to swim and that don't have a fear. You got to become a specialist, just like a lot of therapists do. You have to pick a specific behavior and be there and work on it and prove your awareness and your skill sets and make that every session a learning session for you as well as for your client. And that's my goal every day.
And this is very sad, but 6 years ago, I remember hearing the story on national news about a boy who had slipped. He was walking near shore in a river in Louisiana and had slipped. And one by one, 6 of his cousins jumped in to try to save him, and all 6 of them wound up drowning.
I went down there. I treated her. My documentary, Taking the Plunge, was supposed to be about that whole tragedy down at Red River.
Okay.
And the producer, who was a client of mine, and she said, Jeff, would you think about coming down to Louisiana to help this woman who was one of 2 families where 6 children drowned, and she hasn't even been able to take a shower in 3 years. She's agreed to at least talk to you. Would you come down? I said, absolutely. So we went down, and this is a woman who hadn't even showered in 3 years, and within an hour, she was not only in the pool, but she was swimming. The whole community came. The word spread like wildfire, and the whole community came, and it was like a celebration, like a release of emotions like I had never experienced before. Unfortunately, I won't go into too many details, but there were problems with the consent form and the release, and it didn't make the documentary, Taking the Plunge. There's a very small part where you see her swimming, but it was powerful. I went down to the river the second day, and I said to the Coast Guard, I said, I've got to get in the river. I've got to feel what this family felt. I got to be in the water, and they looked at me and they said, you can't. There's no swimming in the river. We're certainly not going to, you're on a Coast Guard boat. We're not going to let you, go in. But they said, but if you should happen to fall in, anyway, long story short, I fell in. and swam. And I'm a strong swimmer, and I swam and I swam and I swam and I swam, and after about 10 minutes, I picked my head up, and I hadn't moved an inch.
Wow.
And I just said, those poor kids, I mean, they never stood a chance. It was a 20-foot drop from where it was solid ground to a 20-foot drop, and drowning is not, it's not a way you want to go. It's painful. It's a painful way to die, and so traumatic and so unfortunate and so unnecessary. But she has 3 other children. Her name is Maud. I won't say the last name. And she swims now and takes her kids swimming, takes them to water parks. And so, out of the depths of, about as low as you can be, she was able to, with the right guidance and expertise, she was able to come back from that and talk about a situation where, I'm on the plane heading down there going, what can I possibly tell this woman that she's going to trust me? And whatever it is, I have it, thank God, and the trust was there immediately, and it worked, and I think that's what makes me successful with my clients, establishing that rapport and that trust. I'm going to keep my mind open to what you want me to do. A lot of times it's not always a straight line. There are setbacks, and there are always different challenges that you didn't think were going to pop up, and you have to be flexible and creative and be able to change your direction you're going in as you're treating a client. At the end of the day, to watch them be able to jump into a pool and swim and have a smile on their face and know that they feel safe is a incredibly rewarding experience. I love it.
I can hear that. There's another part of this. There's a cultural barrier that a lot of people of color face in learning to swim as well.
Yep.
Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I do. I'm actually working with a lot of different minority groups. The ratio of drownings to minorities to non-minorities is 10 to 1.
Wow.
There's a lot of different reasons why minorities don't swim. Some of it is geographical, some of it is financial, some of it is physiological. Believe it or not, water has a very bad impact on black men and women's hair, and it really does a lot of damage, and they lose their hair, and so that is a problem for them. Historically, white slave owners would take slaves and take them out in the water and almost drown them to make them fearful of water so that they wouldn't try and escape, using water. So that was passed down. There's a lot of reasons. Economic. Do they have access to pools? The same access as other ethnicities, other socioeconomic levels, and the answer is no. So I'm right now I'm working with the Red Cross. I'm trying to get them to understand that. I'm working with a lot of local municipalities, departments of Parks and Rec, school systems. I'm working with black universities that have a high population of black and Hispanic students. Trying to, it's the same conversation every time. How often, is your pool used? Never. I said, like never? And they go, never. I said, do anybody take your learn to swim classes? No. And to me, that's just unacceptable. There's just no reason. I mean, there's reasons, but there's there are resources that can turn that around if enough people cared. And unfortunately, the aquatic industry, there is progress. The Red Cross is offering free swim lessons now. USA Swimming, free swim lessons to a lot of minorities. I mean, the culture is changing, but it's got to be done on a much broader scale, and it's got to. It's not reaching the people that I work with. I mean, there is a difference between a fear of water because you don't know how to swim, and there's a difference between a fear of water where you just look at water and you think you're going to die.
Right.
There's two different things.
Right.
And so the ones that they are able to get into the pool, they're going to learn how to swim. They're going to learn how to be safe in the water. But the ones, and this goes for any ethnicity, if you don't ever allow or are allowed or guided or find resources that are specifically able to handle that mindset and that fear, it's a very small window. And what happens is, like I said before, you lose them after they get into middle school. You lose them because they stop going to camp and they find other jobs. And my biggest clients now are the baby boomers who want to play with their grandchildren in the pool. They don't want to, they want to go vacation here and swim there and do that, and they know they can't. So they come to me and they say, what do I do? And I said, just keep coming. Just come and keep an open mind and don't listen to what your head's telling you. Listen to what I'm telling you. And I promise them that if you keep coming, you'll be able to do all those things that you've been unable to do all those years. You can't make up for those years, but you still have a lot of years ahead of you where you can enjoy the water.
So there isn't anything as it being too late to learn, too late
Never.
to try to overcome this fear.
Nope. My oldest client was 92, and she was incredible. She was fearless, except she couldn't walk into the water. And after 8 weeks, and her husband was 93 and on a walker, and every week he was just terrified that she was going to drown. And the last class, I have them jump into the pool, either off the side of the pool or off of a 1 meter board, and he was in tears. He thought for sure he was going to lose his wife, and she walked up there and she looked at him and she looked at me, and I gave her the nod, and she went in, and I had to hold him back from jumping in after her. I mean, it was heartwarming, but I felt so bad. He was sure she was going to die, and then she popped her head up and swam to the side, and that was it. But she, 92.
92.
Most of my clients right now are between the ages of, I would say 60 to 75.
Wow.
And they have a lot. Life experience does play a large role in this. Knowing coping skills and being able to use logic and process. But I ask my adult clients to split their brain in two. One being the adult who's a successful family man, successful businessman, successful at all his hobbies and interests, and the other one is a newborn infant who doesn't know anything, and I'll fill in that you just soak up whatever information I give you, and you try to blend the two and come up with a successful result.
So for the older person who is afraid of water and for that reason doesn't swim, they actually may have there might be a strength in being older and having those life experiences that you can bring to this newborn experience of starting over in water and kind of support yourself to get through this and get past this fear.
Yeah, because, the chances are that they've experienced some challenge or some anxiety or some barrier that they had to use a lot of different skills to get over or through, whether it was a change in profession, whether it was a change in the family dynamics, a loss of a loved one, and so they have these skills. A child it's much different. They don't have that yet. So it's all about getting them to trust you completely. It's just 100%. If they feel safe with you, then you can get them to do just about anything in the water. You can, and then once they realize, hey, wait a minute, I can do this. Then they're fine. The biggest challenge sometimes is the closure. When I sit down and I figure out an exit strategy, especially with the adults, okay, you've just spent X amount of weeks doing this. You spent a lot of time. You spent money. You put yourself through a lot of difficult situations. Now what are you going to do? Are you just going to never go swimming? Are you just going to let it sit there? So part of this process is the closure. Work. Where are you going to swim? I want to name of 5 pools when you come back here next week, and we're going to talk about it. And because if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. You're going to it is the kind of thing that can come back if you don't use it on a pretty much regular basis. You have to keep that part of your confidence and your skill sets fresh, and you can't do that if you just can't use the excuse, well, I can only do it because you're here, and so the process involves first me getting out of after a while, removing myself from the pool and letting them do things on their own, and then the closure is, finding another place for them to swim, and making sure that they follow through on that, and because I don't want them to go back into that negative mindset about and allowing that fear to sneak back in there.
Right, after they worked so hard.
Yeah, exactly.
So if people want to learn more about your approach to water phobia, give us a link where they could go and read more about this.
Well, they can go to my website, which is www.waterphobias with an S, one word, .com.
Okay.
Or they can feel free to call me at 727-741-3088. And I am based in New York, but as I gave you the example of Louisiana, I do travel. I get requests from, and this is the frustrating part for me. I get requests from all over the world, both from clients and from instructors who want who want to be trained or want my program, and it's just not cost effective for me to fly to deal with 2 clients in Australia and then fly to Austria and then back down to Argentina. And I mean, I'd love to be able to do it, but it's logistically impossible for me to do. And so I'm trying so hard to develop, this program with the Red Cross, to have a infrastructure where I can train other people to do it. And but it hasn't been easy. It's been a very difficult road. I presented twice at the World Aquatic Health Conference, sponsored by the National Swimming Pool Foundation, and out of 400 to 500 aquatic professionals from around the world, I would get 15 to 20 people come to my presentations, and I just couldn't understand it. I mean, part of the reason is financial. They know that they're going to make more money doing other programs, which is understandable, but I feel as an aquatic professional, you have an obligation to not neglect certain populations. And a non-swimmer or a fearful swimmer there should be resources for them, and there just isn't, and there's not enough anyway. So I fight every day. I'm talking to other aquatic organizations and trying to get them to set up a program, or at least feel out their community to see if there'd be an interest in a program like that. Feel out their staff, but it's been honestly and unfortunately a very frustrating experience, and I don't know what's going to turn it around. I mean, the statistics will continue to climb. Of drownings and near drownings. No matter how many changes in technology we have, no matter how many more lifeguards are certified, no matter how many other programs are put in place, if you don't have one that's focused exclusively on this population, there's going to continue to be people drowning, or people never participating in an aquatic activity.
Yeah, people being excluded.
Not leading as healthy a lifestyle as you can, because swimming is, without a doubt, gives you the best bang for the buck. It works every muscle of your body and puts the least amount of stress on your infrastructure. So, I just love it when I see, I'm talking, 80, 90-year-olds in the pool swimming laps, and I want to say, you need to go out there and tell the peers that are left out there, it's never too late. Just, get them in here, and we'll do the rest. But they got to get to the pool. I have gone to people's houses and dragged them out of their apartment, kicking and screaming, and they, now they love me, but at the moment they couldn't, if looks could kill, they would have. I'd be dead by now. But it does inspire you to take on other challenges in your life, and gives you a sense of confidence that you didn't have before, another level of it. And
at some level, there's something magic about swimming. Even me with my foot in both worlds. I love water, and I love being in the water, and I'm still trying to conquer that fear. So I just want to, to say that one of our listeners that's listening to you today may know someone who a year from now will have unfortunately drowned. Let's do something about it. Let's
Statistics bear that out. I mean, when I look at any group, whether they be children, whether they be high school, college, whether they be a group of military, big, strong, men and women, I look at them and I go, statistically, some of these people are going to drown, and it's sad, and it's preventable to a large extent. Like I said, sometimes it's just something you can't control, and has a bad ending. But the fear of water can be overcome. And for anybody listening, they can contact me. I can try and find a referral, or like I said, I do travel, or they can come to the Big Apple and combine a little business with pleasure, which a lot of people do, and just take the first step is the hardest, and that's making the phone call, and reaching out. But once they do that, then the hook is in. I'm not letting them go. So, they better be prepared for a force that they probably haven't reckoned with yet. So I just don't give up. So I hope people take it seriously and don't feel like it's hopeless, because there's just no doubt it's not hopeless, and it's if you go on my website and you read the testimonials, they'll blow your mind. How it's changed people's lives and saved their lives, changed their life. However you want to define it, it's a life changer and it's a lifesaver. So don't think, no matter what level of fear you have, that you can't be helped. So please, pick up the phone, check the computer, make a phone call, chat with me for a couple of minutes, and I guarantee you'll already feel differently about the possibilities, even after just chatting for a little bit. Great.
We've been talking with Jeff Krieger. He is CEO of Water Phobias, LLC, at www.waterphobias.com. And thank you so much for sharing your passion and compassion and opening a window for people who are afraid to this magical world. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Sure.
It's very much appreciated. All right?
All right. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, Arly. Take care, and thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
We've been talking with Jeff Krieger, who is the CEO of Water Phobias and teaches people how not to be afraid of water so that they can become accomplished swimmers and enjoy a world of health and beauty in the water. This is Arly Helm, your host on Best of Health.